Hi soulmates, you're welcome to my channel. My name is Tekla, and in today's tutorial you'll be learning how to achieve this beautiful Victorian corset on your screen right now. So if this sounds like something that you would like to learn, please go ahead now, like this video, subscribe to this channel because we have so many premium content, and remember to turn on your notification bells so that you, my precious one, will be the very first person to know any day and any time I upload new tutorials. So this particular tutorial is the sewing tutorial of the Victorian corset that we have already drafted. I will encourage you to see that tutorial before you join us on this one. The link is going to be in the description box of this video. So for this particular corset, I have already gone ahead to cut out my patterns on my fabric, just like I showed you in the pattern drafting, and I've also cut my lining. Then I also ironed cloth gum to the main fabric and the lining as well. So in order to join this Victorian corset, I had to place the pattern on top of each of them so that I do not get confused. And this particular point that I joined now is the middle part of this corset. Now I will advise that you do not shuffle your pattern or keep it anyhow, because you are going to end up confused when you are done, and sometimes you might tend to join the back to the front. So always make sure that your patterns are together and that you are not shuffling it or maybe just keeping it anyhow. You can see how mine is. You can see that I kept it together just to make sure that I do not misplace any parts. So I had to join the center first, then I brought the middle. You can also see that any one that I sew, I keep the pattern paper back on top of the lining. I did not even misplace it a bit because this is going to end up confusing you. Then the other side I've not joined yet, I will push it to the other side of the table while making sure that they are still arranged. So whichever way you want to do it, just make sure that you are keeping everything together and that they are all well arranged. So I had to join the two centers together, and then I joined the middle of the front and then the side of the front. You can see the way I did that. So I've also joined like the side of the back, and I'm now going to go ahead and join the middle of the back. So at this point I was the one on the table while my machine stitching it down, so she will just stitch it down and hand it over to me, just so that we do not misplace the pattern. But if you are sewing it alone, just make sure that you keep the pattern on top of each one, that masking tape on top of each one, and then label it or just put the pattern on top. So at this point I was just sewing it side by side. At this point I was sewing down the left side. Remember that the very first thing that I did was to join the center together. You know that normally when you draft corsets, the centers is always closed, but for this particular corset, the center, you have to join it together. So after I was done joining the left side, I now had to push my fabric back. So I'm now going to go ahead and again to start joining the other. So you can see the way I am taking my time to join each one and to make sure that it is well aligned. So because that the fabric I was for this corset is a brocade fabric, so if you have worked with brocade before, you will know that it flares up a whole lot. So the allowance that I added to it was not ½ inch. I added like 3/4 inch of an allowance. I didn't add ½ inch allowance, so that even if it frays up, I can still have something that would hold it down with. And I also added 3/4 inch allowance because I also want to use it as my boning channel. So after I was done, this is what I have. I am going to go over now and use my steam iron to iron the seams open. So after ironing the seams open, you can see what I have. You can see that this is a 12-piece Victorian corset. Assuming I added more darts, it would have been more than this, maybe 16, 20, depending on how big the person is. So you can see that I've already ironed the seam allowance open. Now this seam allowance that I ironed open, you can see the bust area just the way I'm showing you with my hand. You can decide to use your boning channel, so by that way you place your bone inside of it, or you can just sew your bone on top, and you will also add your bra cup to it. You can see the way I placed it. All you have to do is use a needle to tack the bra cup down. So you can see what we have. You can see how perfect this is already coming out. So at this point, you now determine how you want to put your bone. Do you want to put your bone on the fabric, like on the main part, or do you want to put it on the lining? And also, are you going to sew it on top of the allowance, or are you going to sew it inside the allowance? So I am just going to use a bone to demonstrate that. I am still going to take it to my sewing machine to show you as well. And you can decide to place it on top like this and stitch it down. Just make sure you are leaving half inch on both ends. You are leaving half inch at the beginning of your sewing, and you are leaving half inch at the ending of your sewing, so that you can be able to use that to turn your lining. You can decide to place your bone inside the seam allowance like so and stitch it down, or you can just decide to place it on top and sew it. Can you see the way I'm showing you? So I'm just going to proceed to my machine now. And also, you are supposed to add two bones to each of this line, which is one bone on one seam allowance and the other bone on the other seam allowance. That is if you are making this Victorian corset. So I'm just going to go ahead now to show you exactly how to add the bone. So I am going to go ahead and sew the first one on top of the main fabric. Can you see the way? I'm just going to sew like on both sides of the bone, and I'm just going to leave you to see what I am going to do, so that you see exactly how to do it if you are sewing your own. So guys, have you liked this video? Please go ahead now and hit that like button. That is your one way of encouraging me to create more tutorials. And also, did you find value in the video? Please go ahead and tell us in the comments, so that YouTube can get to suggest my video to other tailors as well. So I would also like to say that we have a pricing strategy for bespoke and ready-to-wear tailors. If you are a tailor that accepts clothes from clients, or you are into ready-to-wear, you definitely need that pricing strategy, and it is very, very affordable. I have a breakdown of how you should price your clothes when you accept it. I know that so many people do not make profit just because they don't really know how to charge clients. Some people, they just charge for the money that they are going to use and buy the material, and then they now add extra profit. Well, guess what? You are doing it the wrong way. If you only charge money for the material you will use, for the tailoring material and the main fabric, and then you now think, oh, let me now add extra profit to it, guess what? You are doing it the wrong way. So in the pricing strategy, I was able to show you all the costs that you should have, and then how to add your percentage profit. In fact, it is a very, very detailed course. All you have to do is to click the WhatsApp link on our bio, or you can also click the seller link on our bio. Once you make deposit for the course, you will just get the PDF directly to you, or you can also use the WhatsApp link to reach me directly on WhatsApp. It is in the comments for your own. So at this point, while I was sewing this bone on this corset, I realized that because I was using a red thread, it was not coming out the way I loved it. And so I just decided to add this other bone, because I'm still going to add eyelets to this corset. Remember that it is a corset, so of course there will be eyelet on it. And I just decided to add this other bone, so that I will now proceed to sewing down my bone on the lining. That is what I did. At this point, they took light, so I literally had to start filming the following day. This is like day 4 now of me creating this tutorial. So I had to now stitch down the other bone, and I also had to proceed sewing this bone on my lining. Every other place that you're seeing seam allowance, I now had to sew the bone on my lining. Reason being that because of maybe the color of the thread I was using, I didn't like the fact that the lines that I was sewing down was coming out on the other side of my corset. But if you prefer, you can decide to bone on your main fabric, or you can decide to bone on your lining. I don't think the camera was showing the lines, but it was very visible. So at this point, I was just contemplating whether I should continue sewing on the main fabric or I should just move over to the lining. And guess what? I decided to do it on the lining. So if you are making this for your client, just go ahead and add 2 bones on each seam allowance. For the purpose of this tutorial, on some allowance I had to add 1 bone because I'm just making this corset solely for you people. I'm not really making it for my clients, so I'm just making the tutorial for you. So you can see what I have. You can see the way at the middle part I added 2 bones. This is the lining. I went ahead to sew the bones on the lining, and you can see how beautiful this is already looking. So guys, please, have you liked this video? Go ahead now and hit that like button and encourage me to put more videos. Now that you have done that, thank you very much. Let's continue. So I am not going to use this main fabric to turn my lining because my lining has more bones, so I'm literally turning with the main fabric. So I'm going to place it middle to middle, and I'm going to pin that together. I'll go over to my machine and I'll use 1/2 inch to sew it round. I will sew the top and then I'll sew the side as well. The only part that I am not going to sew is just the down part. So the down part, I'm just going to use a band, like a long band, to trim the down, just the same exact way you trim or you stitch or fold your corset end. So right now I'm just pinning that. I am going to go over to my machine to use 1/2 inch allowance. You can also see that at the ending part where I will add eyelets, I also had to leave 1/2 inch that we use to join the lining and the main fabric together. So after doing that, I turned it and then I went ahead to use iron to iron it down. So you can see that this my bustier area was not standing so much firmly, reason being that I did not add a bra cup to it. So when you are making your own, please remember to add a bra cup so that it can look more firm. So this is just it, and this is what I had at the end. You can see how I turned down the down parts. So guys, did you enjoy this tutorial? Thank you so much for watching, and remember to like this video, remember to share it to your friends, and also remember to leave me a comment. And I can't wait to see you in my next tutorial. It's still your girl Tekla, and see you in my next video. Bye.